Hey everybody, sorry we're running a little bit late. It's all gravy though. Happy Tuesday to everyone out there in the Fire Fam. Welcome to the Tuesday edition of Burn It Down with Kim Brown. This is the safe space that we set oppression ablaze, and we know that something can, will, and must better arise from the ashes because we cannot live under this oppression for our entire lives, can we? No. I think we have lived under the oppression long enough. It's time to take the shackles off our feet so we can dance. Hey everybody, shout out to all the Fire Fam checking in. What's going on, Shades? Hey, Sugar Booger. What's up, Latif? Latif, check your Twitter DMs, broskies. Julius is in here. Tony H is in the building. I know Kev Z 24/7. Franco is in here. Franny Francais is in here. We got some new folks up in here. I'm pretty sure the new people are in here because of today's guest. We have a wonderful show in store for you guys today. We have a wonderful topic to get into. It's something that I think that a lot of you all are going to be able to identify with and have some opinions on. So, of course, as always in the chat, we want to see you rocking away. Please do us a favor. If you have not already subscribed to Burn It Down with Kim Brown, take the opportunity to like and subscribe. You can also follow us places around the internet at BIDWKB on Instagram, on Facebook. We are on Twitch. Hello, Twitch over there. Shout out to Northern Witch holding us down over there on the Twitch. Yes, darling. So listen, guys, I want you guys to get comfy, take your shoes off, make some room. Come on in. We got plenty of space. Of course, Courtney the SLP is up in here. Chuck Diesel, my bruv, is here. Brenda is up in here. I said my good niece Alicia is up in here, guys. And actually, Alicia, I'm gonna start with you. Because Friday, after Friday's show, guys, Alicia hopped on my IG live because me and Afra sings. I don't know if Afra's with us today, but me and Afra have been going live together on Instagram for reasons, right? And Alicia came true on the IG live, and Alicia said, "Hey, Auntie, guess what?" She said, "I quit my job, Auntie." I said, "Yay, go, Alicia!" Alicia is pursuing her dreams. Alicia, you need to do what I told you to do, young sis. Alicia's going to drop her Cash App information, all of her PayPal, Venmo information, Alicia, because Alicia's going in a new direction, guys, and I told her that the Fire Fam is going to stand by her. So, Alicia, drop your stuff in the chat, y'all, and if you're able to, drop Alicia a couple dollars because we're trying to help Alicia as she goes on this brave new adventure. And another person who is going on a brave new adventure is our guest today, who I'm very excited to have on Burn It Down with Kim Brown. I'd like to introduce everybody, Sabrina Salvati, better known as Sabby Sabs. She is the host of the Sabby Sabs Podcast as part of the Revolutionary Blackout Network. And Sabby Sabs, hi! I'm so happy to have you here with us today.
Hi, Kim. Thanks so much for having me on.
Listen, you recently took a very brave and big step in your life, in your personal emancipation, dare I say. And recently you left your job, and I couldn't have been prouder of you, having not known you personally. When people quit their jobs, I'm like, yes, that is the kind of resistance I would like to see here. So first of all, I want to extend my congratulations to you for quitting your job and for being part of this new, dare I say, growing movement of people who are walking away from their jobs, some from their away from their careers, especially women who are using this pandemic. I can't say as an opportunity, but I guess in a ways it is an opportunity, but in my perspective, it is a stand. It is our stake in the ground. Like, nope, this is it. We're not going past this point on this particular path. Sabby, talk to me about what it was like for you to quit your job, and the reasons behind you quitting your job, as comfortable as you're willing to share with us.
Sure. So, for those who don't know, I worked at Boston University. I worked there for little over 5 years, actually. I've been in higher ed for over 10 years. And for the past 5 years, I have complained multiple times about the lack of diversity within the staff, also the leadership positions in particular, and the student population as well. And oftentimes I've heard, management and other employees agree with me that this is an issue, but they would continue to do the same things that they were doing. They wouldn't make any changes to what they were doing to increase diversity. Basically, it's like they had this mindset that if they had one Black person, they were all set, and they would stop there. In the leadership positions, it was very so lacking. Most of the leadership positions went to white people. Most of the directors were white. The assistant deans, the associate deans, the deans were white. And that was across the board at the university, but this issue is not unique to Boston University. It is common in PWIs, which are predominantly white institutions. So I just got tired of it after a while, and I started looking for another job. Honestly, like 2 years ago, I started applying and interviewing for jobs at other universities here. A lot of times I would make it to the final round and I would lose out to internal applicants, which is also pretty common in higher ed. So I gave myself a deadline, which I recommend if anybody else is dealing with this same situation. Give yourself a deadline of when you are going to get out of there, regardless of if you find another job or not. So what I did over those past 2 years, I saved my money so that if push came to shove and I needed to leave, I could just leave. And that's what happened. I watched employees, this was before the pandemic started. I watched employees leave left, right, one after another. It got to the point where we were getting emails every week that someone was leaving. And so that's pretty bad. Then in turn, what they would do once we came into the pandemic, they wouldn't replace those people. They either wouldn't repost the position, they will remove the staff line immediately and say, okay, we're going to take these responsibilities and dump them on the staff members that are left here. So now you have offices that are short staffed and now they're overworked. And we were already overworked before. At the same time, you're telling these same people that they can't get promoted. We can't give out a raise, but you want them to give 110%. So as time went on throughout the pandemic, it got to the point where we were pretty much down to a skeleton crew in my office. And at that point, they were like, we want you to take on another job, another responsibility to add on to the workload that you've had dumped on you. And for me, I was like, no, it's not happening. Because number one, I already had issues with the diversity issues. Then you were overworked. And then on top of that, there were incidents that happened there that were racial incidents that I complained to HR about. HR did nothing. They are useless, by the way. They are not there to help you. They are there to protect the university at all costs. And that's something that people have to understand. I went to HR 5 different times. And every time they would take notes, they would tell you that they hear you, but nothing would change, nothing would improve. In fact, the last time I saw them, they told me there was nothing that they could do. So that's coming from HR. I complained to my supervisors, and it wasn't just me, like my coworkers were complaining too. And so basically what you have to understand, and what I had to understand, is that it wasn't individual people that were the problem. It's the organization that's in place that allows these things to happen. So in order for things to change, the organization would have to change. And once I realized that, and I knew the organization wasn't going to change, I knew that I had to leave.
That is sadly, Sabby, so typical of so many Black women's experiences in the workplace throughout industries, right? And everything that you were saying, I'm like, yep, yes. And I was like, oh, the only way she went wrong was she went to HR. She should have went to the EOC. But because again, I have been through this situation multiple times, unfortunately, and it's really heartbreaking to know that this is so embedded and systemic throughout the American work environment. That Black women and women of color have to endure this types of treatment. And I wanted to ask you a little bit more about that because you mentioned Boston University, obviously a predominantly white institution. I would imagine that a lot of these issues that you encountered are systemic and they have been in place at the university for some time. But when it came to the people like yourself, Black women on staff, Black people on staff, people who present obviously as non-white, how were Black people treated as employees? Did you see a specific targeting out, or did you find that other Black employees had similar complaints to you? Like, it's not just you that is experiencing this at this particular institution, but all of us who work here are experiencing this, from our brothers and sisters who are, the custodian staff to people who have come there with advanced degrees to work for Boston University.
Yeah, so there was a diversity event that I went to, and that was when I got to meet other Black people at the university. There weren't that many of us, to be honest. And after talking to other people, that's when I realized that they had the same experiences. And then I realized I'm not crazy. This isn't just a me thing. This is happening across the board. And so once we started talking to each other, we started to realize, like, no, there is a problem with this institution. There's a problem at this organization. What we come to learn is that once you start to complain about it, then you become a target. They don't want you to complain. So then what happens, another thing I started to notice is that Black employees were punished more harshly than white employees for the same thing, for the same instances. I noticed that Black employees were more likely to be written up for careless little mistakes, and white employees would not. And you have to think about who was in these supervisor positions. So I said earlier that most of the supervisors are white. So what happens is a lot of times those supervisors look out for the white employees and protect the white employees. If the Black employee makes a mistake, they'll just throw them under the bus. That happens often. And another thing I noticed too with the faculty, and this is another problem that is an issue across like PWIs, there are very few Black faculty. And they tried to create a diversity initiative to recruit more Black faculty. And by they, I mean the diversity office. Do you know that some of the faculty at BU didn't want to do it? They didn't want to bring them on. And so I had to
they were
ask
like,
myself,
no, girl, I can't bring my homie over here to come work at this plantation in Boston.
No. And so I had to ask myself, like, what is this institution about? They say they want to increase underrepresented minorities here, but they don't even take the steps they need to increase the representation among the staff and the faculty. And when Black kids come to these schools for open house, they look around and they see all the faculty are white. There's that one Black token faculty that they have in the department. People can see past it. And plus, this is a really expensive school to go to. So that was another thing. They really don't try to do this. This is a problem across the board. We don't have enough Black tenured faculty. And it's not that Black people aren't applying to these positions. They are. They're just not hiring them. They're hiring people that look like them. And most of the people on the hiring committees are white. And they've been to these elite schools. They've been to Harvard. They've been to Yale. So if you have Black applicants that are coming in for these faculty positions, and they went to, no shame to Michigan State, but they went to Michigan State, which is actually a good school, they don't see that as good enough. They don't see that they want to hire people who look like them, that went to the same schools as them. They think you're not smart enough or you can't handle the research. So a lot of the Black applicants that apply for those faculty positions get overlooked. This is why we have the shortage that we have of Black faculty at PWIs.
Talk to me from your experience, Sabby, about, to me, what is the farce of diversity and inclusion, right? Because it's really just something to say. It's something to put into practice very minimally. My observations of diversity and inclusion at the university level, at least I guess it comes to staffing, would be, okay, Black people make 12% of the population, we will have exactly 12% Black employees. Like, even regardless of what the demographics of the city or the surrounding area are, it's like the reinforcement of that social hierarchy to make sure that white men are on top and white women are below them, but right below them, and then everybody else trickle down as it may. So talk to me about your observations about diversity and inclusion, which to me just sound like gobbledygook at this point. It's just something that sounds good. It's not something that's practiced the way that I suppose it's framed to be implemented. Yeah.
Correct. It's preached, but it's not practiced. Most of the Black people are at the bottom in these staff positions. They're food and service workers or they're administrators, but even with administrators, they're usually at the bottom. They're not in the supervisor positions, the leadership positions, right? So what you have, again, is you'll have Black employees that have been there for years. I'm talking for years. They never get promoted. They apply for those positions. They're not considered for interviews. And then you'll have someone who is white, who is an external applicant, has less experience, and they'll get in just like that. And what people have to understand is that 70% of job applicants get those jobs through networking. So then you have to ask, who is in your network? And what we found, we did a diversity activity at work. What we found is that most of the white people didn't have any Black people in their network. So if everybody's just bringing in their friends or people who are in their network to interview, you're not going to have as many Black people. So it's a big problem. And this is one of those things where I felt like they really did not want to fix it. They kept saying, like, we need diversity, equity, and inclusion. Even the people that we had that gave them that diversity, there was no equity, there was no inclusion. Why are you paying the Black employees less than you're paying the white employees? Why are the Black employees being left out in the office space? So you'd have coworkers, they go to lunch together, they go grab drinks or something after work. The Black employees would get skipped over. And I mean,
girl, consider yourself lucky.
Listen,
you don't want to go out with your white coworkers after work, Sabrina. You know they're going to run up the bar tab. First of all, they're going to pay, number one. So that's one thing. But they are out there trying to get you drunk. You cannot trust your white coworkers. They are out there to try to get you fucked up because that's what they do after work every day. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry. Because I hear a lot of Black people complaining in the inverse, though. Like, please, Karen, I don't want to go to lunch with you. I don't want to hang out with you and Sarah. Like, if you could just kindly leave me alone. I'm at my desk. I'm doing my work. I'm not bothering nobody. But I'm sorry, darling. Continue with your story. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, it's just funny. Like, they would actually skip over, like, your office and invite the person in the office right next to you. Things like that. And then there were other times too, and this is not particular just to this department. This was something that was happening across the board, right? That's why they started doing those diversity lunches, which was supposed to be everybody. The only people that would come to the diversity lunches was the Black employees. And so it just didn't make any sense to me. But they used to have this thing that they would do where they would mix up my name with another Black employee. Now, we don't look anything alike. And I'm like, how are you confusing us? We look nothing alike. And things like that, like, really used to just get under my skin. Like, you do realize we're not the same person because both of us are Black. You can't take the time to really get to know us to the point where you realize we are not the same person. So it was things like that. And I just felt like they really did not want to make change. Now, I was reached out to after I left. Unfortunately, that was the same day that I turned in my stuff and I couldn't respond. Honestly, I probably wouldn't have responded anyway. because for me, it was just too late. You had people complaining about this for years, and now you want to come to them and say something because you saw a video on Twitter. I had no idea that video was going to get that many views, but it did, or that my tweet was going to get that many views, but it did. But honestly, I don't feel bad about it because I feel like this needs to be public.
And Sabrina, I mean, you tried to take the high road. You did all the so-called proper things. You went through the proper channels. You tried to talk to HR, and the bottom line is that they did not care. It is part of the entire structure here in this country, not just at BU, but really across the work board, to make sure that Black women and Latinx women and Indigenous women stay on the bottom, no matter how much we complain. And I know, and it's funny, but it's not funny, because the guest that I just had on my show Friday, a phenomenal journalist by the name of Cerise, Fire Fan, was not Cerise saying the exact same thing. Sabrina, Cerise used to work at the NPR station in Los Angeles, and she said there were numerous times, she put this in her letter, there were numerous times that she would try to enter the building and she would be physically prevented from entering the building because they said that she did not look like someone who worked at KCRW, and she would often get confused with the other Black woman who worked at the station. I mean, this is everybody. Like, if you are a Black woman watching this right now, you are not crazy. You are not crazy. Every single Black woman literally has experienced this, and this is across industries, everybody. So what we are experiencing now, this is just how Black women are treated. And I'm glad you mentioned pay disparities earlier, because that's something I like to refer to as the Black women's discount, right? Like, you get to pay me 30% less, but you like to give me more work. And you like the level of my work, but you don't want to pay me for doing said level of work. And you said that was also a complaint amongst the Black employees at BU.
Oh, yes. And this is why a lot of times employers don't want you to talk about how much you make to your coworkers, because people start talking and you realize, like, wait a minute, they're paying you how much?
Right,
they're not paying me that. So yeah, it was a problem. And you'd find someone who's in a lateral position, similar position to you. You realize they're making more money, they have less experience, and you're like, what is going on here? Like, why are you paying them more and you're paying me less? And sometimes, a lot of times, the Black employees would do more work. We would do more work, work longer hours.
Yes.
But they don't want to pay.
No, that is expected. Like, it is expected that Black employees do more for less because, we're technically, we're still supposed to be slaves, Sabrina. They mad that they have to cut us any check. they are upset that any compensation is owed to Black folks. And I say that tongue in cheek, but literally I mean that, because how else can these disparities be so prevalent, so universal, when Black women exert themselves at ridiculous rates, put ourselves in tremendous amounts of student loan debt in order to facilitate an opportunity with a degree to open a door for us. And we end up doing more for less and having to pay more because, not coming from wealth historically, we are taking college loans relative to our white counterparts. So but I love the fact, hold on, let's get into the resistance, because in addition to Sabby Sabs' act of resistance and our good sis Alicia's act of resistance, apparently Black women are resisting point blank. Today, let's pop up A1. This is a piece back from early December from the Brookings Institute, guys. And this piece reflected the November jobs numbers. Now, the November jobs numbers, I believe, at the time were but there was a pretty notable takeaway from those jobs reports. And I wanted to read an excerpt for ya, okay? So let me read the headline for everybody. It said the November jobs report shows that Black women are leaving the labor force. What? Yes, for reasons, for excellent reasons. Let me read this quick excerpt from this. So it says, though the overall economic picture on the jobs report is slightly positive, there are racial disparities in terms of employment. The biggest item to note is the drop in the number of Black women in the labor force, which is a phenomenon likely driven by ongoing disruptions to childcare. But beyond this change to the labor participation, ongoing concerns include the effects of inflation and the uncertainties of the pandemic with the arrival of the Omicron variant. Now, I think that Brookings piece sort of glosses over it a tad bit, but if we go down to A3 Tunde, this piece from Market Watch, also I think from December, and the headline says, I can't imagine the day when I'm not paying. Black women are being crushed by the student debt crisis and demanding action. And Sabby, I wanted to sort of emphasize on this point about what it takes for Black women to even get these jobs. You know, oftentimes we are first generation or possibly even second generation in college. More than likely, our people don't come from money. You know, there wasn't $20,000, $50,000 sitting aside just waiting for us to go to school. A lot of us had to take out loans, and that put us in tremendous amounts of debt. And a lot of us operated under the assumption that has been sold to us that the more education that you have, the higher your earning opportunities are. But when Black women are getting these degrees, these bachelors, these masters, these PhDs, and they're looking for them checks to add a couple bit more zeros, and them zeros are not being added to them checks, we find ourselves in a terrible bind of owing on our student loan debts and also dealing with the misogynoir and the racism of the American workplace. So talk to me about what are your thoughts, number one, about Biden canceling student loan debt, whether or not you think that he will, and how this is absolutely a racial justice issue for Black women in particular.
Absolutely. I don't think Joe Biden's going to cancel student loan debt. And I think part of that has to do with the donors. I talked about this a while back, that Sallie Mae, which is one of the worst student loan predators out there, they recently announced that they were going to cancel some student loan debt. But what that actually meant is that they were transferring those loans over to someone else. They go by many names. One of their names is also Navient. They donate to Democrats and Republicans. So I always tell people to go on opensecrets.com and you'll find out why some of these politicians won't do the things that you want them to do. So I don't think Joe Biden's going to cancel student loan debt. He didn't even keep his promise to HBCU students, because he said he was going to cancel the debt for them. And he didn't even do that, and then had the nerve to go to Atlanta and speak at HBCUs and talk about voting rights. So it's really interesting. I think when it comes to the burden of student loans and you're getting low pay, it creates a lot of stress. And this is something I think we don't talk about enough, is that people who have a lot of this student loan debt, a lot of times Black women, we carry the burden of it, the most of it, and you're being paid low wages. Yes. And you're trying to figure out, you got to pay your rent, your mortgage. You have to pay those student loans. God forbid something happened to your car and your car breaks down. Now you have an added expense that you're not used to paying. It creates a lot of stress. When you have a lot of stress, that can cause health problems. It messes with you mentally. It just puts you in a state of despair, anxiety, and depression. So this is why it's really important that you try to practice self-care. And this is something I've been advocating for people to do. We run around a lot. I was working a lot of hours, like at my previous job. I was answering emails at 10 o'clock at night, sometimes at midnight, thinking I had to do it just to keep my head above water. And you're running around and you're doing everything for everybody else. And some of us have kids, some of us are caretakers, and you don't have the time to stop and take care of yourself. And so then your health starts to suffer because of it. So it's really important that you do practice self-care, and you have to learn to put yourself first and put other people second sometimes. And I think just as women, naturally, that's just not something that we're used to doing. I think we are accustomed to putting everyone else's needs before our own, especially if you're a parent, right? Putting their needs before our own, and then we take care of ourselves last. And I think that is a big problem. Now, in reference to getting those jobs, 70% of jobs are obtained through networking. So this is why a lot of times I encourage people to go to these networking events. You can do them virtually now, so you don't have to leave your house. Meetup.com has a lot of networking events, so you can network with people that are in your field. That is heavily crucial. Like you have to, like as Black, like you have to do it, because you just putting in an application and your chances of even getting an interview are going to be slim if you don't know someone who already works for the company. And this is one of those things where white people have an advantage over us, because a lot of times they have those networks. They gain those networks at some of these schools they went to, like people that went to Harvard. Harvard has a really good network. They're well connected. So it's important that you get involved in a lot of networking. It's unfortunate, but for us to get even like those basic entry level jobs, we may have to network a lot more and a lot harder than a white person who has the same skill set as we do. And that's just to get the interview.
That is true, and I don't disagree with that. My only concern is that we're networking ourselves to try to get into these jobs where we're going to encounter the exact same systems and the exact same discrimination that you face, that I face, that our mothers face, that our grandmothers face. Like I want us to be free of all of this. Let me read something real quick, guys, because it's I understand that we're all actually just trying to survive capitalism, right? That's just the bottom line. And we're all doing the literal best that we can. But I feel as though Black women and brown women are literally killing ourselves. I mean, doing the exact thing, Sabby, that you said, like we have to network harder. We have to do more physically, more demands of our time and of our efforts and resources. Let me read this real quick. This is also from that market watch piece. It says Black women face a very unique combination of barriers when it comes to succeeding in the workplace and paying their student loan debt. For one, they borrow more on average. Black borrowers, regardless of gender, tend to have higher student loan loads than their white peers because of decades of policies that blocked Black households access to wealth building, such as redlining. But when it gets down to the wages parts, this is the part that anyway. Once Black women graduate, they face a labor market discrimination that limits how much they earn. A Black woman with a bachelor's degree was paid $27.76 an hour on average in 2022, according to the left-leaning Economic Policy Institute's State of Working America data library, compared to $44.37 for a white man and $32.02 for a white woman. So just think about that. A Black woman with a bachelor's degree was paid $27.77 on average, compared to $44.37 an hour for a white man and $32 an hour and 2 cents for a white woman. It's like, Sabby, I mean, we could work 100 hours a week. We could work until our fingers are just nubs, and it's still not going to make up for that gap. So is the resistance here to exit the workforce and create our own opportunities, or are we still trying to make change from the inside?
Well, for me, it's to exit the workforce and make my own opportunity. I'll just tell you the truth. But I do realize not everyone can do that. I do realize that. That's the thing, too, is there are a lot of people who want to go into entrepreneurship. They want to do their own business. But then you run into the issue of healthcare, because a lot of us, I've seen people stay in jobs because they need the health insurance. And the reality is, depending on which state you live in, you leave that job, you have no health insurance, then you can get penalized on your taxes for not having health insurance. So that's another reason why I'm an advocate for Medicare for all. Like, this is just ridiculous. Your health insurance should not be tied to your job. But I do realize, like, some people can't do that. And if you can't do that, I highly recommend, and this is going to take some extra time, I highly recommend starting something on the side while you have that job. And if that's freelance work, a friend of mine, she started a catering business, but she started very small. She was making cupcakes and she loves to bake. So she took something that she really liked to do and could do well. And she started like making cupcakes and cakes for people. And I was like, why don't you sell them? I'm like, they're really good. Now she has her own catering business. Now that didn't happen overnight. It took time. But this is how a lot of people get started in entrepreneurship. They start off doing this on the side while they have another job, little by little. Sometimes it can take a couple of years, and eventually they're able to leave that job and start their own thing. But this is also where mutual aid comes in. And this is something that we advocate for a lot on RBN. Get to know your neighbors, people, because I've noticed like we don't have a strong sense of community, not like we did when I was growing up, when I was a kid. We don't really have that much in this country anymore. Get to know your neighbors. You never know, the neighbor, the guy who lived above us died like in our building. Nobody even knew he was dead.
Oh,
He was there for days and nobody knew because we don't know each other. We don't talk to each other. So like get to know your neighbors. Like someone may need someone to babysit for them, but they can't afford to send their kid to daycare. So you can do free babysitting for people. Someone may need a ride to work. Like some people don't have transportation and they just need help, but you wouldn't know it because you don't know your neighbors. You don't know the people around you. So I know that's not as easy to do right now during the pandemic. I think that's made it more difficult. But even before the pandemic, I felt like we just really did not know our neighbors like that. And I think part of that's because social media and a lot of us interact more with people online. But I think we have to build community again. Like when my parents told me when they were growing up, everybody in the neighborhood knew each other. My parents are from Baltimore. So everyone in the neighborhood, they knew everybody. If someone needed something, someone in the neighborhood would help them out. How often do we do that now? So we have to get back to that. I think we need to look at some of the things that the Black Panthers did to help out people in their community. But at first, we have to come together as a community and find out what the needs are, and then we'll be able to help people.
I agree with that, absolutely. And I wanted to circle back to something that you were talking about when you were talking about this is the right opportunity or the right time for you to step away from the 9 to 5 and strike out on your own. And there's a lot of purveyors of black capitalism, like LLC your way out of poverty. It's very easy. And it's like, no. But I feel that sentiment because, the reason why, and let me not speak for Tunde and Mane, but let me speak for Tunde and Mane a little bit. I mean, the reason why we are even here was basically out of necessity. And I think that, perhaps collectively we were like, no. Well, let me speak for, I was like, no, I'm not even headed back into that realm because it was so toxic for me and not fulfilling for me in that way. And so it's better off to try for us to try our hand and do this. But at the same time, I'm anti-capitalist, right? So I don't necessarily subscribe to, that we are going to build a business and that is going to be our ticket out of poverty and that's going to cure society's ills. How do you wrestle with that at all? Do you have any thoughts about entrepreneurship, but at the same time, like, wait a minute, I'm a socialist. It's like, how does this work? How does this work? Talk to me about that, Sabby.
Yeah, it's difficult because unfortunately, the country that we live in, we have to make money. We have to make money in order just to survive and to pay our rent and who knows what other bills that you may have. And I'm not even getting to student loans, but that's a whole nother thing. Because I know some people have just said like, look, I'm not paying my student loans back, whatever. Some people have said that, right? So absolutely. I think like that's what makes it difficult because we do live in a country where if we don't have a job that gives us health insurance, then you may not have health insurance, depending on what state you live in. I live in Massachusetts. We have Mass Health here, but even that's income based. So if you make a certain amount of income, you don't even qualify for that. Again, why we need universal health care. But if you look at other countries, if you look at like places like Germany, if you look at places like Finland and Denmark, and you see how some of these, I don't want to call them social programs, but you see how they help the community. They have these things. Some of these countries that have free college, like I still think it's ridiculous that people have to pay for community college in this country. So because we don't have those systems here, unfortunately, we still have to work. And that's what's unfortunate about it. But what I recommend is if you are going to take that route, I recommend also getting involved in mutual aid. That's what a lot of us do over at RBN. That way you can also help out other people as well and build on that and continue to make that grow. Because eventually it could get to a point where, hey, we don't have to go work for these capitalist companies anymore. We can help out each other. And I think that's where like the Black Panthers were headed. They didn't want people in the community to feel like you have to go work for these companies where you're going to be treated so poorly and you have to work all these long hours and you're tired at night. So I think that They had the right idea. And I really wish like that would have continued and didn't stop in this country and that could continue to grow. But that doesn't mean like we still can't do it. I really think like more of us need to get involved in mutual aid. And if you have questions on how to start that, how to do that, I recommend reaching out to Rome Bethea. He's known as Unholy on Twitter. He's doing Tour for the Poor. He travels all across this country doing mutual aid for people in different cities. I think he's doing mutual aid in New York right now. So Rome is really good with that. I know he helped Liv get started doing her mutual aid. So there are people out there who can help you and give you advice on how to do it. But we got to take care of each other. I've seen too many people get evicted this past year. Too many people lose their jobs. And for the people saying that there's all these jobs available, I have news for you. A lot of those jobs are temp positions, contract positions, and they don't have any benefits. They're not telling you that part, or they have very low pay. So at the end of the day, this is why I focus a lot on the class issue, because we are the 99%. And the people at the top, and I'm talking about this tonight on my show, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, their wealth doubled during the pandemic. Why aren't we rising up against these people? Why are we continuing to let capitalism exploit all of us? Why?
I think as for the same reasons that the Panthers were infiltrated and dismantled and assassinated, right? And in prison and locked up. We still have Panthers that are in cages right now. We have members of the Black Liberation Army who are still in jail right now for taking actions and daring to rise up against the empire. And I think that it is those severe punishments that we all are collectively aware of. I think that is what keeps a lot of people in place. That's what keeps us in check. We understand that we live in a very militarized police state that will throw you in a cage for the rest of your life and not care, right? And I think that is what keeps a lot of people stymied in fear. And let me add myself to that. I am stymied in fear. Like I live close to DC. I should have been down there with the January 6th Bams, right? But they would have found me in the crowd amongst all the white people okay, we got one. We're gonna put her in jail right now because people are afraid of the police state, and I can understand that. But I agree with you. I think that organizing around mutual aid is a very remediable solution. Like we can do that. That's something that we can do. And I think that we need to even study the Panthers and even talk to the Panthers that are still very much with us, and take away some lessons from what they did and what was successful and what wasn't. So speaking of successful and what was not successful, Sabby, I mean, one of the big issues that are standing in front of Black people right now has to do with the voting rights. And apparently the Democratic president and the democratically led Congress's inability to whip up 2 votes to, stymie the filibuster in order to get these voting rights bills passed. What are your thoughts about what voting is going to look like in the very short term for 2022 and 2024? It appears as though a lot of these Republican-led bills in red states are probably going to stay on the books, and it's going to make it more challenging for Black people and Latinx people to get out there and vote. Are the Democrats ready for a of voter suppression and voter apathy towards them specifically when these next impending elections come forth? And it's so weird for me to 22 because it is now 2022, so the midterm election year has arrived. So what are your thoughts about the pending massacre, I say, of Democrats in these next 2 elections?
I would say like most of the Democrats that are in DC are not aware of the amount of voter suppression because they don't live in neighborhoods where voting is suppressed. It's just true. Wealthier neighborhoods don't have to deal with this. They don't have long lines like some of the communities do. I know when I lived in South Carolina, I waited in line for hours. It's absolutely ridiculous. Here in Massachusetts, I've never had that happen. I've gone even the 2020 election, which I did wait a little bit. I think the longest I waited was 30 minutes. So that was still relatively fast compared to friends of mine in other places. But I don't think they're really ready for this. I don't think they
Mm.
realize like how bad this is going to be for them. But I do also have to say, I don't really think they want to win. I don't think Joe Biden really wants to win. I think they want to fundraise. I think they want to have a rotating villain. I think Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin are the rotating villains. If it wasn't those two, it would be someone else. I don't think they really had true intentions on this bill passing. But that being said, I think it's important to look at what is actually in these bills. Because the thing about the voting rights bill, yes, it does help people against being like suppressed when they're voting. But this voting rights bill is for people to vote for Democrats. This is not going to help people if they're trying to vote third party. If they really cared about people voting generally across the board, why are third party candidates not on the ballot in every state? Where's the bill for that? How come that's not in this bill? So it's just to get people to go out and vote for Democrats. And the reason why they're trying to push this so heavily right now is because Joe Biden's poll numbers are abysmal. He's doing terribly. Kamala Harris is doing terribly. They know that they're in trouble come 2020 this year and come 2024. And so now they're trying to scare people and try to say, oh, well, Hillary Clinton may be our best bet in 2024. And Trump's going to run again. If Trump runs again, you got to go out and vote for Hillary. So they're trying to fearmonger people. And I'm like, they just don't get it. We don't want Hillary. We don't want Trump. I'm tired of these establishment politicians that they put on the ticket every time. They've already handpicked people. You hear them. They're already picking Hillary Clinton, which means that anybody else that goes up against her is not going to get a fair shot. That's and right. I would argue that have we ever really had fair elections in this country?
Oh, no.
Yeah. If they really wanted them to be fair, how come they don't count all the ballots? Why are some of the voting machines broken, especially in Black neighborhoods? They don't even work half the time. People stand in line all those hours and they get up to the machine and it's not even working. Why isn't everybody using paper ballots? And then in some of the states where they have paper ballots, how come some of them aren't even delivered or dropped off? So they know what they're trying to do. They know what they want. I feel like they already have written the narrative. They don't really want the people to come out and vote the way that we want to. And that is unfortunate. And I think that's why the media continues to push these establishment politicians, these establishment candidates, and anybody who runs the other side of them, anyone who's running further to the left, they will smear them. That's what they did to Bernie Sanders. Anyone who's running third party, they will smear them. That's what they did to Jill Stein. And that is unfortunate. But then I also come back to this question, do we even need political parties in this country? Why do we have political parties? Why can't we just have people run and just pick the people that we want to win?
I mean, all this sounds like very common sense stuff. It's just, this is America. and if there's a wrong way to do it, America's going to find at least 3 wrong ways to do it, Sabrina. And, and to your point, obviously, yeah, like ever since Black people were granted the right to vote, white people have been figuring out how to take that shit back. like the very next day, they're like, "Oh, they signed that into law. Oh no, we gotta organize and get that off the books." Like, and that's legit. And it's interesting to me that, especially when we're looking at this voting rights bill being reported upon from mainstream lens, funny how that never comes out. Like Black people's right to vote has always been under attack in this country. Ever since it was granted, it has been immediately been trying to be stripped or undermined or devalued, and that continues even into the 21st century. Well, tell you what, Sabby Sabs, I appreciate your time today because I see what time it is. I know you got a show coming up at 7. So I'm gonna turn you loose, but I want to thank you so much for coming on my show and being just so very transparent about your experience, about your feelings, about what you witnessed. I mean, to me, that's brave. And I said, like, I'm gonna tell you just like I told Cerise, like, for Black women to come out and be honest and vocal about their experience, to me is so very brave because I know what industries and how people running off at the mouth have a tendency to want to kill our careers. You know what I mean? Like they intimidate us with, hey, well, you better be quiet about how you were treated because don't you want to get another job somewhere else? And they're not going to like you bad mouthing the last job. No, you're not bad mouthing the last job. The last
Mm-hmm.
job treated you like shit. And if they are embarrassed about that, then that's on them. Like you have nothing to be ashamed or embarrassed about by telling how they treated you. So I appreciate you and I applaud you for doing that, because that gives more of us the courage to do the same thing and to chart our own path. And what you're doing is incredible, and I'm very proud of you, and I thank you so much for your time and for being who you are. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks so much, Kim.
You guys, we have been speaking with the one and only Sabby Sabs of the Revolutionary Blackout Network. You should guys go over to Sabby Sabs channel, subscribe to Sabby Sabs show. She always has amazing guests, and she always discusses extremely compelling topics, and she has wonderful takes. And I think we're even going to get a more unfiltered Sabby Sabs now that she has emancipated herself from that plantation that was Boston University. So thank you again, Sabrina. We appreciate you making the time. So guys, thank you all so much for coming through. If you all were dropping us a lot of comments and stuff, I kind of missed it. I'm very sorry. Everything was going to kind of going a little crazy, but I want to thank you all for stopping by. Please, if you have not already subscribed to the channel, press subscribe to the channel and follow us places around the internet at BIDWKB. And if you want to support us materially as well, you can please do so. Patreon.com/BIDWKB. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much to all of our people. Thank you, Susan. Susan PayPal'd us some money before the show. Thank you so much, Susan B, for your support and for your love, and for everybody who has been supporting us. And Courtney, I did not forget. See, I knew I had a guest today, so it is very important that I do that story on Friday. So I just wanted to tell you personally. And David Silberg, hello. Anna Hart, hello. Ursula, thank you, darling, for your cash app last week. Thank you, Vespa X. Thank you, Alicia. Alicia, did Alicia drop her cash app and her PayPal information in the chat? Alicia, I need you to do that, because we got to support Alicia. Alicia is doing what these other sisters is doing, what all of us is doing, what Shanette is doing, right? Our sister Shanette is on this track. Like I respect this so much, y'all, because as a Black woman, and this is not to diminish the experiences of other women, non-Black women. I'm just speaking it from my lens. I know you all can apply it as it lands respectively with you, because listen, I know white women ain't got it all good out here. I know that, but compared to me, you do. So, I mean, I know white men be on white women's ass, and then consequently the white women be on the Black women's ass. So, I mean, it's a vicious cycle. It's a vicious cycle out here, but I'm not non-empathetic to non-Black women's experiences, but speaking specifically as a Black woman, y'all, it is hard out here in this work world. Do you understand? They expect you to do 2 and 3 people's jobs with a smile, right? At a third less of the pay, and not complain about the shit, right? And they expect you to do that from ages, let's say 18 or 22, whenever you get out of college, 22 to what? What's retirement age? 65? You must be out your motherfucking mind. You must be out your goddamn mind. If you think I'm gonna stand out here and shuck and jive and step and fetch for motherfucking 50 years, nigga, you crazy. You motherfucking crazy. And let me explain something to you else. That's another reason I'm so proud to see Black women leaving the labor force. Again, not just Sabrina and Cerise and myself, but apparently this is a thing. This is a thing. The Bureau of Labor Statistics is tracking this as a thing. Black women are leaving the workforce. This is a thing. This is a real thing. And it's because we want to be old. We would like to be old, but guess what? I'm never going to be old under the man, because the man is going to give me a heart attack, hypertension, or give me diabetes, or make me so depressed that I am too full of caring for myself. I don't want to exercise. You understand? Like there's a lot happening there. You dig? As Black women who have to subject ourselves to this capitalistic workplace politics where the social hierarchy has us at or near the bottom and expecting us to be cool with that shit. And I'm here to let you know we are not cool with that shit. And guess what? You can't me, I quit, bitch. That's my mantra. I got that tatted on my back. Check it. I stand by that. Like, I will quit a job in a heartbeat. Ask about me, shorty. I will dip on your ass. If I feel even for a second that, no, that's not true. I have a 3-strike rule. That is true. I will give motherfuckers 3 strikes in my head. People would not have any clue that I'm counting strikes on their ass, but I'm totally counting strikes, and they get 3 strikes. And as soon as they hit that strike 3, to whom it may concern, I'm drafting my resignation email right now because, bitch, I know how to be poor. I know how to survive. I know how to eat being poor. I know how to scramble and make sure that my shit is paid despite being poor. And I would rather be poor than have a job and be wanting to literally trigger warning for suicide, be literally wanting to kill myself by the time I leave this job every day. You understand? So you have to prioritize yourself, your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health. Fuck that job. Fuck that fucking job and do what you got to do. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go off, and I'm good. I am by and large, I am good, but I'm just, I feel an opportunity to sort of have a catharsis here because, again, I was very impressed by what Sabby Sabs did by telling her job, take this job and shove it. I respect the shit out of that. I swear to God I do. And I want more Black women, more Black people, other people from other ethnic communities. Take of this what you will, but Black women specifically, we have to prioritize ourselves, our health, our mental health, our physical health, the mental, physical, and emotional health of our families, okay? And if that job is driving your ass into the ground, fuck that fucking job. You will get you another motherfucking job. I promise you, you will get you another motherfucking job. Or if you part of the fire fam, we will help. Alicia, I'm gonna say it again. I am not paying a whole lot of attention to the chat, but you had better drop your cash ad shift in this motherfucking chat, Alicia, because we are here for us. We are here for all of us. So anyway, I'm gonna leave it there. Guys, come hang out with me tomorrow morning over on Black Power Media for the Remix Morning Show starting at 8 a.m. Dr. Jared Ball and Dr. Jackie Lukman, Kamal Franklin, Kalanji Chonga. I hope Kalanji's over there. I haven't seen Kalanji in a long time. So y'all, so whoever got the straight up plug to Kalanji, you tell Kalanji get his black ass up in the morning and come on and be on the Remix Morning Show with us tomorrow morning over on Black Power Media. Fire fam, I will see y'all back here on Friday. Shout out to everyone who came over from the Sabby Sabs show to come check us out, to come check out your sisterin over here on Burn It Down with Kim Brown. We hope you like what you heard and hope you hit that subscribe on your way out. Yes, you don't have to tip your server because we pay our servers a living wage. So, haha, there you go. You get this one on the free, everybody. On behalf of Tunde and Molly, we will see you guys back here Friday. We love y'all. Omicron is still out here jumping on people. Please protect yourself. We love y'all. See y'all later. Bye-bye.